Tyson Fury has just done this interview, which you can see on screen right here. It came to my attention via my Element group. Somebody posted it in there and several members were discussing it. And in the interview, Fury made a number of false claims in an attempt to try and justify or even promote his upcoming Trilogy fight with Derek Chisora. The interview is on the True Geordie YouTube channel. And look, regardless of what you think about True Geordie, whether you like him or dislike him, and personally, I've never been a fan, but objectively speaking, he asked some very good questions here. And Fury, for the most part, was belligerent. Towards the end of the interview, he was cussing True Geordie out and said he'd never do an interview with him again. And this is despite the fact that True Geordie was very polite, he wasn't rude in any way, and he prefaced a lot of his probing questions by stating how much he admired Tyson Fury and how highly he rated him. But it seems that the Gypsy King won't tolerate anything less than sycophancy from his interviewers. He's certainly not going to stand for someone trying to quiz him on his disingenuous ways. Fury said that upon beating Chisora for a third time, he will be the first heavyweight champion in history to complete 2 trilogies. And he also said that Alexander Usyk is not in his era. Both of these claims, of course, are untrue, and I'll address them directly in a moment. But firstly, Fury was asked about why he's fighting Derek Chisora for a third time. Bear in mind, this isn't a prime Deontay Wilder we're talking about here. This is a man with 12 losses. This is a man who's way past his best. This is a man who doesn't appear to have the same engine, pace, or punch resistance that he had just 2 or 3 years ago, let alone 8 years ago when he last fought Tyson Fury. So why Derek Chisora instead of someone else in a WBC top 15? We've heard Fury's representatives claim that they went through the rankings top to bottom and Chisora was the only opponent available. Well, first of all, forget about BoxRec rankings. They're completely irrelevant because WBC champions are only permitted to make voluntary defenses against people in the WBC top 15. So if we have a look at that here, Fury just knocked out Deontay Wilder and Dillian Whyte in the past year or so. AJ walked away from the fight effectively. Parker is Fury's personal cheerleader. And he's already fought Otto Wallin, and Hellenius just got chinned a couple weeks ago. So we can discount those 6 guys, all right? But then you've still got Andy Ruiz, Frank Sanchez, Makhmudov, Bacoli, Kosobutsky, Ortiz, Hunter, and Filip Hrgovic. I do not believe for 1 second that all of these guys were approached or made offers to fight Tyson Fury in December. I challenge Team Fury to prove otherwise. In the interview, Fury did actually seem to hint at the fact that he could have chosen someone other than Derek Chisora, but he said that the public wouldn't be interested in seeing him fight some unknown European, quote unquote. Well, this is problematic because he had no issue fighting 2 unknown Europeans in Tom Schwartz and Otto Wallin while he was running around boasting about being lineal champion. He also, on countless occasions, has said that he doesn't care about money. And if that's the case, then why is he so concerned about the fact that some of the other names in the top 15 aren't as well known to the British public as Derek Chisora? If your opponent's selection is based purely on who's the most well known, as opposed to their ranking, their record, or recent form, then you're literally just looking for the guy who will help you generate the most money. What other reason could there be? Is Fury trying to suggest that he's doing it all for the fans, or because he desperately wants to help Derek Chisora out of the goodness of his heart? I mean, give it a rest. He went from saying that he'd only fight AJ if both guys agreed to do it for free, to fighting Derek Chisora on pay-per-view a few months later. You couldn't make it up. In my view, the only reason Tyson Fury has taken this fight is because he thinks it's a safe and easy cash grab. That's it. Now, getting on to these false claims that Fury made. He said that he'll be making history as the first heavyweight champion to complete 2 trilogies. The problem with that is that Muhammad Ali already had 2 trilogies, one with Joe Frazier and the other with Ken Norton. So that's easily debunked. But let's give Fury the benefit of the doubt and assume that he didn't explain himself very well. And what he actually meant to say is that he'll be the first heavyweight champion to complete 2 trilogies without taking a loss. That's not what Fury said in the interview, let's be clear. But I'm going to be generous to him and make that assumption. But even that's problematic, because why are you having trilogies with fighters who've never come close to beating you? Against Deontay Wilder, he was dropped twice in the first fight and it was officially a draw. Then he went on to win the rematch by stoppage. Therefore, I guess you could make an argument for the third fight being a decider. But with Chisora, that's not the case. The first fight was a comfortable points win for Tyson Fury. The rematch was a one-sided stoppage win for Tyson Fury. So what is the point of the third fight? This is not a prime Deontay Wilder we're talking about here. This is a well past his best Derek Chisora with 12 losses who's pushing 40. Muhammad Ali lost to Joe Frazier and Ken Norton the first time he faced them. He then evened the score by winning the rematches, therefore having a trilogy decider made perfect sense. Not the case with Fury and Chisora. So he's making history, quote unquote, here, supposedly, by going 3-0 in a pointless trilogy. True Geordie mentioned the fact that Fury has, on several occasions, declared himself to be the greatest of all time. Now, when you make such a bold claim, then you will be held to that standard. And greatness is not based on who you think would beat who in a fantasy matchup, because that's mostly rooted in opinions and speculation. It's not good enough. In order to even be in the conversation for greatest heavyweight in history, at a bare minimum, you need to have beaten most, if not all, of the top fighters and contenders around in your era. That's the minimum requirement for entry. For example, Muhammad Ali fought and beat literally everyone who was anyone, from the first fight with Liston in 1964 to the Spinks rematch in 1978. He had a total of 24 world title fights in that 14-year period, despite the fact that he had a 3.5-year layoff in the middle of that. 24 world title fights, 25 if you include the Larry Holmes fight, but that's outside of this period that I'm talking about. If you examine the records of Joe Louis, Larry Holmes, and Lennox Lewis, for example, who are 3 of the other candidates for TBE heavyweight, you'll see a similar story. There are other candidates as well, but I'm not going to list them all here because I'm just trying to give a quick example. Joe Louis had 27 world title fights. Larry Holmes had 25. Lennox Lewis had 17. And they all beat most, if not all, of the top fighters around in their respective eras. They cleaned out the division. Now, if we compare that to Tyson Fury's career so far, he has had just 5 world title fights, 3 of them against the same guy. The vast majority of fighters in the WBC, WBA, IBF, and WBO top 15 are people who Tyson Fury has never fought. Now, if he had fought most of these guys, then you could forgive him for recycling a few opponents. But that's not the case. Yet and still, he has decided to recycle Derek Chisora on pay-per-view. And this segues into the second false claim that Tyson Fury made in the True Geordie interview. He said that Alexander Usyk is not in his era, and that the only person from his era that's left for him to fight is Anthony Joshua. The inference that Fury was making is that he doesn't need to fight Usyk to solidify his position next to Ali and the other greats. The problem is, Fury is talking absolute bollocks. He claimed that he was winning world titles when Usyk was still in nappies, metaphorically speaking, right? Well, let's look at it. Fury won his first world title in November 2015 against Vladimir Klitschko. If what he says about Usyk is true, then Usyk shouldn't have won his first world title until several years after this, right? Well, Houston, we have a problem because Usyk won his first world title against Krzysztof Glowatsky less than 1 year after Fury beat Klitschko. There's only 10 months between those two fights. Furthermore, how on earth can Fury claim that AJ is in his era but Usyk isn't, when AJ and Usyk not only fought at the same Olympics in 2012, they also both turned pro in 2013 and both won their first world titles in the exact same year, 2016. And to top it off, Usyk is older than both Fury and AJ. So no matter which way you slice it, Alexander Usyk is in Tyson Fury's era, and unless Fury beats him, he hasn't even proven himself to be the best heavyweight around right now, never mind the greatest of all time. And just to remind you, Muhammad Ali won 24 world title fights from 1964 to 1978. That 14-year period is what most people refer to as the Ali era. Now, when Ali won his first world title, Joe Frazier and George Foreman hadn't even turned pro yet. Ali won the title in 1964, and Frazier and Foreman didn't turn pro until 65 and 69 respectively. Yet we still class those two guys as being part of the Ali era, and his victories over them were an integral part of his legacy. Fury still has an awful lot to do before he can be in that TBE conversation, and a trilogy with Derek Chisora is not going to help him. You know, it never ceases to amaze me the lengths that fanboys will go to defend their favorite fighter. And the Fury fanatics have been going into overdrive lately. Cognitive dissonance off the scale. A few weeks ago, when I did a video about whether PEDs should be legalized in boxing, I used Tyson Fury as an example of a top professional fighter who thinks that they should be. I wasn't trying to attack him. The point I was trying to make was, if an incumbent high-profile world champion like Tyson Fury has advocated in favor of PEDs, then maybe it's a conversation that needs to be had. But the Fury fanatics, of course, went into mental meltdown. First of all, they accused me of spreading fake news. When I showed them all the evidence, including the actual radio interview where Fury said it, they tried to claim that Fury was having a mental breakdown at the time. When I pointed out the fact that he said it a week before the Klitschko fight, some of them said, oh, it doesn't matter. He was still having a mental breakdown and was effectively delirious. Yeah, go figure that one out. And others tried to claim he was being sarcastic and it was a throwaway comment. But if you listen to the actual interview, you'll realize that nothing could be further from the truth. Far from being a throwaway comment, Fury actually went into some depth and explained his reasoning. Whenever Tyson Fury says something that makes himself look good, like claiming he gave his entire fight purse away to charity, his fans take it as gospel truth. But whenever he says something that makes himself look bad, they say, oh, he was in a bad place mentally. You can't take his words seriously. What, even a week before the Klitschko fight? Yeah. You couldn't make it up, people. They praise him for all the good and absolve him of all the bad due to mental health. No accountability whatsoever. I mean, that has got to be the ultimate cop-out. They've always got this mental health card to pull out their back pocket whenever Fury puts his foot in it. How convenient. Now, I'm not saying that he hasn't had some psychological issues in the past, but you can't use it in an arbitrary fashion like that to bail him out whenever it suits you, especially when you take other things he says as gospel. It's just absurd. The kind of mental gymnastics these guys are performing is comical. There was another guy who said, why do you think it's okay for AJ to fight Gerald Washington, but it's not okay for Fury to fight Chisora? Tyson Fury is an undefeated world champion who claims to be the greatest heavyweight in history. And you're asking me why I think he should be matched tougher than a thrice-beaten contender coming off back-to-back losses, confidence issues, and a public meltdown. Bro, are you being stupid on purpose? I've always said that world champions have a duty to fight the highest quality opposition, because by calling yourself world champion, you're staking your claim as king of the division. And that claim needs to be constantly tested to see if it holds true. If you're not willing to do that, then give up the belts. If you don't have the belts and you're not claiming to be king, then I'm not going to hold you to such a high standard. It's very simple. Anyway, I'll leave it there. Go check the interview out for yourselves and let me know what you think. If you're tired of the biased narratives and mass censorship on mainstream platforms, and you want to be part of a community of critical thinkers who love free speech just as much as you do, then come and join me on Patreon and access my weekly no-holds-barred, censorship-free podcast where we lift the lid on a wide variety of controversial topics. It's not mainstream friendly, it's not politically correct, but that's the whole point. We dare to stand as a beacon of reason against an army of insanity. Just head on over to my Patreon page and select the tier called Hatman Hot Topics. You'll gain access to a minimum of 2 hours of exclusive content every single week, including podcasts, videos, interviews, live stream Q&As, as well as my popular Confessions of a Nightclub Bouncer series. Not to mention a vast back catalog of hundreds of hours of previous episodes. You can listen via the Patreon app with the option to download in high quality MP3. We've also got an Element group where you can come and chat and hang out with myself and other members. Unlike Discord, it has full end-to-end encryption, is decentralized, and it's 100% censorship free. You can also send voice notes as well as much larger audio and video files than you can on Discord. So come and sign up on Patreon. There's no contract, there's no commitment. You can cancel at any time, and it's cheaper than a cup of coffee. So I'll see you over there. I'm out.